Alright, in this video we're going to review how we do plotting in MATLAB. Alright, so let me start by talking about data visualization in general. So an important part of engineering analysis is actually the ability to visualize the data. It's not just doing the analysis, it's presenting it in a way that's useful, right? And this is important for a couple of reasons. And so for one reason, just naturally, just as humans, we're very visually oriented people, and so to see your data in a visual format with colors and lines, it makes it a lot easier for you to spot important trends and patterns that might be crucial to the analysis. Another important reason is that by presenting your data in a visual way, it makes it a lot easier to communicate it with others. And so luckily, MATLAB has a lot of tools that you can use to visualize your data, and we're going to go over a few of them here, but there's a lot more out there. So make sure you go look for it as well. Okay, so at the very basic level, the simplest way you can plot a function is to use the plot command, right? And so what this does is that it draws a simple line graph if it's given a vector for the x and y values. Okay, so whenever you use the plot command, you have to feed it two different vectors. So the first vector that you give it is going to be the x values, and then the second vector that you feed is going to be the y values, and it's going to plot the y values against the x values. Okay, and so here I have a simple three-line code where I define one vector as just equally spaced data points between 0 and 1, and the y vector is just going to be a square of that. Okay, and then we plot that function just like that. Okay, so very, very simple. Okay, so once you've created a figure, you can do a lot of things to modify it, because most of the time, you can't just plot a simple figure and then have that be enough. You want to add titles, you want to add labels, and sometimes you want to modify the widths of the different plots to make it more visually appealing. Okay, and so here's some example of commands that I commonly use when I do figures. Okay, and so first of all, I think it's good practice to kind of manually open a figure, and so I use the command figure, where that I here represents a number, to open up a figure. And then you can then label the x and y axes using the x label, y label command. You can use title to add a title. Okay. And then one thing I like too is that the default for MATLAB, the default line width is a little bit small for me because I have boomer eyes. I need to see my lines very clearly, and so I like to use this line width to make it a bit thicker. And so here's an example of all that in action. So I modified the code that we had previously, where I've added this line 4 here to open up figure 1. Okay. I've added this line width to make the line a bit thicker, and I've added an interesting title as well as some x and y labels for flavor as well. Okay, and so in reality, when you use these titles, you would actually name them something useful that's relevant to your data, but this is just an example. Okay. Okay, and so another nice feature is that you can actually put more than one plot in the same figure, which is really useful if you want to compare two sets of data right next to each other. Okay. So normally when you call two plots one after another, the second plot is going to replace the first one, or it's going to open up a new window. It depends on if you call the figure or not. But you can tell MATLAB to actually put these on the same figure using this hold on command. Okay, and what that tells MATLAB said, hold on, we want to put more data onto this figure, and then it's going to go ahead and do that. Okay, and then when you're done, you can add the hold off. And when you have multiple lines on the same figure, it's nice to add a legend, and so you can use the legend command to do that. And so here is an example of doing that. Okay, so here I have two plots, put them on the same plot using hold on, and I've labeled the curves y1, y2, and I called it off using hold off. Okay, notice how MATLAB automatically picks a different color for the second plot. But if you want to modify the colors as well, you can actually add more commands here, and you can look up that documentation online. Okay. Another useful feature is subplots, and so sometimes you want to plot two figures next to each other, but not necessarily on top of each other. And so you can do that using the subplot command. Okay? And so subplot takes 3 arguments, and so the first two, m and n, specifies the dimensions of your subplots, where m specifies the number of rows and n specifies the number of columns, and p tells you which position the plot is going to be in. Okay. Okay, so here is the here's the example for that. Okay, so I have my same two plots, or actually I added a negative here, and then I've put them in a subplot. And so you can see here that I want a subplot with 2 rows and 1 column. Okay, so one on top of the other, and this first plot here is going to be in position 1, where position 1 is up here. Okay, for the second subplot, you can notice we use the same dimension. We're going to put 2 here for the second for the second position, which is down here. Okay, and I've added titles and labels to all of these as well. Okay, so there's a lot that you can do with the plot function, but sometimes you want to display your data in a little bit of a different format. And so one that I use a lot is the scatter function. And so the scatter function, instead of doing a line graph, it gives you this nice scatter plot, which is nice when you have kind of a little bit more messy data right here. So you can kind of ignore this top part. And so I use some random number generator to kind of scatter this data a little bit. But a lot of times if you're running like a physical experiment, you're going to have data that looks like this. And so if you try to connect these with lines, it might look a little bit messy. And so scatter plots might make it look a little bit cleaner. And then if you try to add a trend line here, it looks a bit better too. Okay. And then finally, the last one I want to go over is the bar. And so another common one you'll use a lot is the bar chart. Okay. And you can do that with just simply the bar function. Okay. And so we'll notice that for the bar function, you only need to add one argument here, which is the height of the lines. Okay. And so this is kind of just introduces the basics of plotting. And so plotting in MATLAB goes a lot deeper than this. And honestly, it's one of the strengths of MATLAB and how easily you can actually plot data. And so, I would encourage you to look a bit further in the MATLAB documentation, search up and see what examples are out there and what tools are out there, and you can find the right visualization for you.